Hi, and welcome to my channel. My name is Pluto, and I'm here today to talk a little bit about how to have difficult conversations and resolve conflict. I am both a psychotherapist and a tarot card reader, and so I've decided to combine my knowledge sets today to tell you a little bit about, from a psychological perspective, how to work with conflict and also how you can use tarot as a tool as well. In my work as a psychotherapist, I talk to a lot of people that are dealing with conflict in their relationships. I spend a lot of time coaching people on how to have difficult conversations, how to approach it, what to say, how to problem solve, how to decide what you want to get out of the conversation. So this is something that a lot of people deal with. If you're struggling with conflict and you're having a hard time working through it, you're not alone. This is a really human problem. On the tarot end of things, I also see a lot of people asking questions of the cards that are around relationships and conflict. And I am troubled because sometimes I see people using the tarot in a way that just doesn't seem to be super healthy when it comes to this area. A while ago, I actually filmed this whole video. It was right before I moved, and I accidentally deleted it because I'm really great at technology. So I decided that this was a really important topic though, so I'm making it again, and it'll be a little different than it was last time, but I think it's a good thing to talk about. So back when I had originally filmed this video, there was a post that someone had made in one of the tarot Facebook groups that I'm in. It was an individual that there was a decision that they were making that was going to impact their partner, and they had kind of decided for themselves that they were making this decision even though they knew that their partner didn't really approve of the decision. And they were asking the cards how to make their partner okay with this decision that they had gone and made free willy. And it was so interesting because a lot of the other tarot readers kind of were like, yeah, the cards say like full steam ahead, it'll all work out, just, keep talking to them. And I was like, hold the phone, because like, you've made the decision that your partner's not okay with, and you're just like wanting the cards to somehow magically tell you how to make them be fine with it. Like, that's crazy, right? So I think we've got to really think through, the cards are not just this magical thing that can make our problems go away, right? We actually have to still take an active role in dealing with the consequences of our actions. When it comes to having difficult conversations, there's a book that I really recommend people read, and I use the information from this book oftentimes when I'm coaching people on how to have difficult conversations. This book is called Difficult Conversations, and I want to say the subtitle is like How to Discuss What Matters Most. The authors of this book are Bruce Patton, Sheila Heen, and Douglas Stone. This book wasn't written by psychotherapists, but it definitely gets to the heart of the matter and gives a lot of practical tips on how to really dive into the difficult parts of conversations. The idea behind the book is that every conversation has essentially 3 layers that are going on at all times. So when we're arguing with someone, we tend to get really stuck on the content level, right? So this is the classic, you leave a towel on the bathroom floor and your partner's really upset and you're like, this is just a towel, why are you so angry? I don't know, right? Because it's not just about a towel. So on the first layer, right, we have content. So this is just the surface level of what happened. In the instance of the towel, it would be, you left the towel on the floor. Simple fact of the matter. Second layer is about the feelings, right? So oftentimes these conversations are so difficult because we have strong feelings. It could be anger, it could be sadness, right? Could be any range of things. So in the instance of the towel, perhaps the person who is like, you gotta pick up your towel, you gotta pick up your towel, right? They're probably feeling irritable or angry that, this is not happening, that the towel is still on the floor. The third layer is about identity. So this is about what the argument, what the conflict, what it means about you, or what you think it means about you, or what it means about the relationship. It's that deeper layer. So in the instance of our towel folks, we've got the partner who's like, you gotta pick up your towel. What they might be interpreting is like, when you don't pick up your towel, I feel like you don't give a shit what I think or what I want, right? Like that you don't value our relationship, that you don't value my opinion or my feelings enough to respond to my request. And so the person who's leaving the towel, they might perceive this as, oh, this is just a simple thing. Like, I've always left my towel on the floor. I don't understand why you're so upset. but for the other person, it has this deeper meaning. So until they can be on the same layer of the conversation, they're not going to get anywhere, right? Because if person B over here is like, but I always leave my towel on the floor, and person A is like, you don't care about our relationship, right? Like this conversation, it's just ships passing in the night, and it's really not an effective approach. So if you can understand the different layers, it helps you to identify where you're not on the same page with someone else. It's also important to look at some of the pitfalls that come up when we have difficult conversations, because there are obstacles to us being able to communicate effectively, and if we don't address those, we're probably not going to be successful. The first pitfall is blaming. If we come from a stance of rigidity, of I'm right, you're wrong, shut up, in the words of Eugene Liang, who I love, we're probably not going to get very far in the conversation, right? And I think Eugene would back me up on this one, right? We can joke all we want about, being right and things like that, but when we're really sitting down to have a heartfelt talk, if we're not open to the fact that we're not seeing the whole picture or that we could be wrong about something, we've already shut the door on the entire thing. There's a big difference between taking blame or placing blame and taking responsibility. So blame is when we're like, it's your fault. This happened because of you. You are wrong and bad because you did this. Responsibility is saying, here was my part in it. Here's what I can say, I played a role in, right? It's seeing cause and effect. It's, being willing to show up and take your part, but it's not, we're just going to dump on someone. So anytime the conversation starts to go that way, right, it's going in an unhealthy direction. Rather than blaming and saying, oh, you're bad, right? Let's look at, what went wrong? What can we do better? Asking questions that focus on the behavior of the person rather than on the identity of the person. Because if we say, oh, well, you're just a liar, right? Like that doesn't leave us any room to connect. It doesn't leave us any room to grow. But if we say, I was really hurt when you were dishonest with me, and now I'm not sure if I can trust you. Those are two really different conversations. Pitfall number 2, out of control emotions. So if you are someone that has big emotions, that's not inherently a bad thing. I myself have big emotions, and we have to learn how to channel them and also how to use them appropriately, right? So if we're trying to have a conversation with someone and we're realizing that we're just hyped up and we cannot get it under control, you may need to say, I'm feeling really emotional. Let's take a little time out. I'm gonna go take a break for 30 minutes, or let's talk about this tomorrow. Because if we're so emotional that we can't regulate ourselves, we're not going to be able to participate in a mindful and compassionate conversation. It's kind of like, you can't go visit like an erupting volcano because it's going to splash you with hot lava, right? We don't want to splash other people with hot lava. We don't want hot lava splashed on us. So we've got to be mindful of that and make sure that if we can't stay in control, it might not be the best time to have a conversation. If you're struggling to regulate out of control emotions, I would suggest looking up DBT. It's known as dialectic behavior therapy. It offers really concrete skills for how to regulate big emotions. It's also a great reason to visit a therapist, to go and see someone and say, like, I'm having trouble coping with my emotions, please help. And we'd be happy to brainstorm to figure out, what coping skills you might need. Are there medications that could help you level out? There's all different kinds of solutions. Number 3, this is similar to blaming, but it's not being able to see the other side, right? So if we're convinced that we're right and we're not open to any new viewpoints, the conversation isn't even going to be able to start. We have to be open to understanding that we may not have the entire perspective on what happened in a situation. We have our experience, but we need to leave room for the experience of other people. And we also have to be able to hold that our reality and someone else's reality might conflict with each other, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that one's true and one's false. There may be aspects of truth to each reality. When our realities aren't matching up, a really great tool to use is reflection. So reflection is a fancy therapist tool that basically means we reflect back to someone, we repeat back similar words to what it is they've said in the hopes that we can clarify, hey, this is what I'm hearing from you, and then the person will let us know if we're on the money or not, right? So if someone is saying like, you disrespected me, you hate me, and you never treat me well, and you're like, what what are you talking about? Like, I'm always nice to you, right? Stop yourself first, stop that impulse to defend, take a moment and reflect back to them you don't have to agree with someone, right, to reflect back, and that's the beauty of it. What you can say is like, I'm hearing you say that, when we have conversations, you feel like I'm disrespectful to you, right? And that statement often helps the person to feel like you're hearing them, like you're taking in their words. And even if you don't agree with them, right, you can still validate like, hey, this is what I'm hearing you say. And that will often soften the person, open the room up for conversation, because now we're allowing for multiple perspectives. Pitfall number 4. Missing the real problem. So this goes back to the layers issue. It's really common that two people are having a conversation, but they're not in the same conversation. So if that's happening, right, take a moment, take a time out, stop and say, it feels like we're not connected right now. It feels like we're talking about two different things. Let's try and make sure that we're on the same page. Sometimes it happens that maybe you didn't know what the real problem was. Maybe neither of you did. And it's time to have a little exploration. Or maybe it's something where you need to have a third party come in and help you figure it out. Sometimes we stay on the superficial level of a problem because we know that the problem traces down to a larger pattern, and we're afraid that if we open that door, it's gonna be like floodgates bursting and it's too overwhelming. If that's the case, you have to kind of decide, you can keep slapping band-aids on this ongoing conflict, or you can set up a safe space, create an opportunity to really let it all out. Pitfall number 5, and I think this is the biggest problem of all, is simply not trying. Too often we have a conflict, we're upset about something, but we're just too afraid to say something, or we don't want to take the time, or we don't think it's going to matter, and so we just keep quiet. Participating in conflict resolution is inherently vulnerable, and I think that it can be really scary, really exposing for a lot of people to engage in these difficult, sometimes very intimate conversations. But if we don't try, if we don't at least approach the conflict, there's no hope that we're ever going to resolve it. Letting a problem simmer time after time is very toxic and can have a negative impact on you and those around you. So I would suggest, if you're experiencing that you're not able to approach conflict, that you feel frozen or it just doesn't feel safe to you, maybe consult a professional. See if there's something that can be done, because once you're able to get that skill of having conflict resolution, I think that so many things in life just get so much easier, because you know that even though it's going to be painful and uncomfortable, that you can get through it and you can go to the other side where you've navigated it successfully. So to recap, we've got our model of conversation where we have our 3 layers. We have content, feelings, and identity. We want to avoid the common pitfalls of blaming, out of control emotions, not seeing the other side, missing the real problem, and not trying at all. So how does tarot fit into all this? Personally, I don't believe in using tarot to answer yes or no questions, to specifically predict what another person is going to do. I know that other people do that, and if you do that, that's totally your decision. We don't all have to believe the same things, but I'm going to offer some alternative ways of using tarot that I feel like are a little more grounded and more likely to help you get information about the things that you do have control over. In a conflict, knowing what the other person is going to do or not do may or may not be that helpful, because even if you know what someone's going to do, you still don't have control over them. So I think it makes more sense to focus on, hey, how can I show up? What can I do? Because that's the part that you actually can work on. I've created a tarot spread that's designed to help you work through a conflict. Or really, I should say, it's designed to help you prepare to enter into some real-life conflict resolution. Too often, I see people using tarot to avoid having difficult conversations. If you remember my example from earlier, it seemed like that individual was using the tarot spread to avoid having a conversation with her partner about how can we repair our relationship now that I've made a really important decision without you. Right? Like, tarot can tell you a lot of things, but at the end of the day, you're gonna have to sit down and you're gonna have to say, yeah, these are the consequences of my actions, and let's have a talk about it. This is a 6-card spread, and it starts out with card number 1 asking, let's describe the conflict, right? So like we need to define the problem first. What is the underlying issue here? And sometimes, right, we are so convinced that we know what the problem is that we miss something. And so this position is not only an opportunity to kind of set the stage, but also to see if there's any additional pieces that you maybe have overlooked. Maybe you haven't connected the dots that this problem is actually connected to an older problem in the relationship. Cards are also really great at helping you define themes and symbolism, right? So there may be an archetypal concern at play where perhaps in this relationship, one person is continually taking on a role of being, the powerful one in control, or someone always plays the victim. There are these larger kind of thematic things that come up that tarot is actually really helpful at identifying. Number 2, examine your intentions. So going into any conflict resolution, this is so important, because if you go in there wanting to get revenge, wanting to, twist the knife in a little bit, wanting to have the upper hand, that's going to really affect how things play out. Hopefully you go into conflict resolution with the intention of, building connection, of repairing a rupture, or something a little more altruistic. But I think it's important to be honest with yourself. If you are preparing to go into a conflict and you examine your intentions and you find that they're not great, that's a good signal that maybe it's time to pump the brakes and get some outside assistance. Number 3, what can you take responsibility for? So this is important because going into any conflict, no matter what, there's always going to be something that you can own. And I think obviously if there's a situation where there's like abuse going on, that gets way more complicated. I would suggest that you seek outside assistance, talk to a therapist. I want you to be safe. There's also a lot of like domestic violence hotlines and things of that nature. Feel free to send me a message if you need access to those kind of resources. Otherwise, it's really important that we look at, how have I contributed to this problem? When you learn how to do family therapy, we talk about how everyone plays a role, right? So say that you have a family where one person is, always taking control of everything and dominating the other family members. All of the other family members play a role in feeding into that dynamic, right? It doesn't mean that they're at fault for someone else's shitty behavior, but, if they're continually reinforcing that, playing along with it, right? They're also helping to create this system that's perpetuating itself day after day. So we want to look at, am I not setting boundaries? And that's contributing to this situation. Am I not sharing how I really feel, right? There's all kinds of ways that we contribute. Number 4, the most effective approach. So we want to really think through, what's our method, right? Like, what is this person going to respond to? Are there techniques that I can use? Is there a particular conversation style? Would they respond better to having a conversation, in a public place, or at our house, or over tea, or at a movie, right? Like, think through what you know about the person and what they respond well to, and try to incorporate that into your approach. For some people, conflict resolution might best happen in writing. Maybe it's time to start with a letter or a phone call as opposed to an in-person meetup. So really think through what's going to work in terms of your individual situation. Number 5, blind spots. So again, tarot is really good at bringing out what's kind of just outside of our point of view and putting it right in front of our face. So this is a great opportunity to gather any info that you might be missing that's really important. Number 6, how to access compassion. In any conflict resolution, it's so easy to let our anger take the wheel. And I think that when we can stop for a moment and think through, this person probably wants similar things that I do, right? They want to feel safe, they want to feel loved, they want to be happy and successful. If we can connect to that feeling and we can honor that impulse inside them, sometimes it really helps us to, put down the sword, so to speak. If we go into a conflict resolution, ready, like on the warpath, like we're gonna knock them down and take their lunch money, right? They feel that energy. But if we go in and we say, I'm here, I'm gonna hold my boundaries, right? I expect you to treat me with respect. And also I'm here to kind of feel something for you that's not just anger. I'm here to feel compassion for you, for kindness for you. I wish you well. That can really be a game changer. If you'd like to use this tarot spread, I'm gonna go ahead and post the words below in the description, and I'll also post it in my Instagram, which is at Pluto from Below on Instagram. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or want to share a story about a time that you did some conflict resolution or what worked for you, feel free to comment below. If you're someone that's thinking about doing some conflict resolution, I want to say that I'm really proud of you for being brave to do something that requires a lot of vulnerability. I wish you all the best of luck, and please let me know how it went. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.